Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
When 8-year-old Vinnie Stewart disappears from a Jersey shore town, Maddie, her distraught single mother, begins a desperate search for her daughter. And so begins Julie Maloney's riveting psychological thriller, A Matter of Chance. It releases today, April 10th, 2018, through She Writes Press. Now, Julie is an acclaimed poet. She's a dancer. She's also the founder and director of Women-Reading-Aloud, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to promoting women writers. She's also trained as a workshop leader in the Amherst Writers and Artists Method. You can go to the website, women-reading-aloud.com, to learn more about that. But go get A Matter of Chance. It is an incredible book. You will sit up at night and you'll want to just stay there all night until you finish the book, like I did. You can go to her website, julie-maloney.net. Of course, go to Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, all those great places. So very excited to have Julie join Nancy and I here on Big Blend Radio. Welcome, Julie. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa and Nancy, for inviting me. I'm so looking forward to speaking to you about this book.
You know what? I know this is your debut novel. You've also written and published a poetry book, Private
Yes.
Landscape, and now you're in the world of novels, but you go into a psychological thriller that kept me up all night. This is like, yesterday was the first day I didn't, have your book at by my side at night. I'm like, well, I'm ready for another book, and it's one of those books that you stay up reading and you really get connected to the characters, to the story, obviously, and which we don't want to tell everybody all the details because they need to read it. But it's one of those books that once you're done, you can't even go to another book. Like, it's still living with you. You know, like when you watch a really good movie, you're still thinking about it the next day. That's how I'm feeling right now. So can you do number 2?
I have written number 2, and it's in the editing stage now. And it's written in the voice of a secondary character from A Matter of Chance. I wanted to give her own story, so that's coming up later on.
Excellent. I'm excited.
Wow.
And the characters in your story, like I was saying, we really feel connected to Maddie, the mom. Also, 8-year-old Vinnie, the child, this mother, you have so many strong themes in the book, mother and child, that connection, and
Yes.
understanding and how they communicate. It's very much like Nancy and I have this same, just feels very, Nancy would be the same as Maddie, going off there and like, I'm going to find my daughter and I'm not giving
Correct.
up. But it's the theme of mother and child, of understanding their conversations about observations,
Yes.
Nancy
Yes.
and I have that all the time. Like, did you see this? Did you hear that? Like, not just the blatant things in life.
And I also wanted to include over this 5-year journey that Maddie, the mother, travels through, her own transformation. So that even more than a story of abduction, I like to think of A Matter of Chance as a story of Maddie Stewart. What happens to her? What happens to the one left behind when tragedy strikes?
Yeah, and also there's a theme of second chances in there, even, whether it's her best friend,
Yes.
and, second chances in love. And to me, it is a story of chances all the way around.
Yes.
in her art.
Yes, you really did get that. I'm so delighted to hear that, because I'm always interested to hear what are the readers seeing, and what are they seeing in these characters, and what are they getting from the different themes. Because there are choices, there are moral choices that Maddie Stewart has to make. And there's, I don't want to give away some of these spoilers here, but one of the choices, of course, is does she save one child when she's seeing something and stumbles upon something that is heinous, or does she go and save one child knowing that she may jeopardize saving her own? And she has to make that kind of a choice, and eventually she really can't stop herself from saving another child.
Wow. She's cool. I'd like to meet Maddie. she's a strong mama bear, and it's amazing how she never gave up hope. And that journey, it was very painful. As a reader, you're connecting like what it's got to be like to lose a child.
Yes.
yet know that out there, just not to lose, like totally lose a child, but you've lost, your child's not with you, and
Yes.
to not give up.
And I actually lived with Maddie Stewart in my head for a long time. I discovered this character in 1999, if you can believe it, and she just appeared on the page when I was in the middle of a workshop. I was writing to a prompt, an exercise, and she appeared on the page. I didn't think too much about her, but she evidently was strong enough that she wanted to stay in my head. And for years, she just stayed there. Sometimes I'd write a little bit more. And eventually, maybe about 5 years ago, I decided I had to really pay attention to what she was saying and all the characters that she was bringing in to my head. And believe me, they get very noisy. They don't give up. And Maddie Stewart just kept hammering away, telling me write my story. And eventually, when I decided that I was going to commit to this personal challenge of writing a novel, which really was a personal challenge, to see if I could do this, and I just became so immersed in the whole process of writing the novel, which is very different than writing poetry. Even though there is absolutely similarities as far as paying attention to energy and paying attention to the rhythm on the page, how does the language flow. So of course that's similar to poetry, and in any genre, it is the love for words and how we can put them on the page so that the reader stays interested. And the book has been called a page turner. And I really didn't set out to write a page turner. I didn't set out to write a psychological thriller. I just set out to
I know,
tell a
from
story.
Poetry to psychology, it is a psychological thriller. I didn't even think of that as a genre, honestly. To me, I'm just like, this is, to me, it's an emotional journey. Reading it's an emotional journey, and it's there's so many transformations that people go through in this, and it's just, I was saying, there's a lot of second chances. And also the story, to me, that one of the strong stories is the story of art. Maddie's an artist, and then her friend Evelyn being an artist, and that was almost like a mother-daughter relationship in that story too, and as a mentor. And the role of the arts, I think obviously with what you're doing, in regards to your nonprofit, Women Reading Aloud, but also as a poet and a dancer and now a novelist, the power of the arts is very, very strong in this book. And I think it's really important that we keep that message out there as things are getting defunded across our country. People need to realize the power of arts and how the arts transform us, how they heal us, and make us think. Well, it's actually
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because as you gather, just for me personally, I love art. I feel that art, I agree with you completely, has to be in our lives, and art does heal us. And when Maddie Stewart becomes basically a student of Evelyn's, just in this very loving way, and they meet because they're neighbors in an apartment building in New York City, and Evelyn is already a noted artist. But Evelyn understands, to some degree, what Maddie is going through because of Evelyn's own personal tragedy. And actually, the whole idea of art came to me, again, by chance. It was a matter of chance, because I was at the Morgan Library in New York City, and I was looking at the exhibit that was being shown at a certain time of year, and I happened to just stumble across a painting by Kata Kovics, and Germany's most revered artist, and it was of a grieving mother. And I said, I have to learn more about this artist. I just must. And so I ended up going to Germany on a research trip for the novel, just to learn about this artist, because she, it just blew me away that this was a matter of chance, that there I am walking through the Morgan Library, looking at the art on the walls, and there is this one, actually small image. And I thought, what is this? And eventually what happened was Kovics became the muse for the book. And
Wow.
there were two museums that are dedicated to Kollwitz in Germany, one in Cologne and one in Berlin. And I have to tell you that when I walked into the museum in Cologne, I cried. It was such an emotional experience for me after I had been using Kollwitz as my muse to actually be there in this place, dedicated completely to only her work.
Wow.
And and it really was, as I said, an emotional and even spiritual experience for me.
Wow, that makes sense now, especially reading the book and seeing, reading. I mean, because it's very visual, it reads like a movie, and so as I'm reading, I'm like, there's parts in there that I'm going, did she go there? Did she go to these places that are in the book? I'm trying not to give this story away here.
Yes.
What are you going to say, Nancy?
No, I just was wondering about the artist. Did she have a lot of personal tragedy in order for her to paint in such a way that it would move you to?
Yes, she did. Absolutely. That's a good question. She did, because Kollwitz ended up losing both her son and her grandson, both named Peter, in the war. And she became a champion for the forlorn. She was a champion for the poverty-stricken, the grief-stricken. So her paintings, particularly those that have to deal with a mother and child, are those that you can sit and study. And many times what I did, I would just look at these paintings, at these drawings in books that I collected on her work. And I would just sit at the desk and turn the page one after another to let the art slip inside me. But you're absolutely right, Nancy. Kollwitz did suffer, but she used her grief to move to the page through art.
Wow.
It's interesting as a painter myself. It took me several years of looking at my own paintings to realize that I had a mother-daughter theme in most of them.
Yeah, I'm looking around right now. There's paintings of mother-daughters.
But they're all animals.
They're all animals. She's a wildlife artist, and it's all animals.
Right.
It's like,
it's weird, isn't
well,
it?
Mary Cassatt did the same thing. She was really connected, that mother-daughter bond, how she painted. And, it was interesting because she never had children of her own. And she struggled. She struggled as an artist to be a woman artist. I think her dad wasn't for it, and
no, of course.
And her mom was secretly, go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was that bond of wanting to do something. And the one thing you touch on in the book, and this really, I have to bring it up, is the blue flower garden. I'm so into it. I want a blue flower garden. And this was a connection. Don't you want a blue flower garden? I'm like, no, everywhere we're out in the desert here in Tucson, and I'm like, okay, there's bluebells right now. We have those out in the desert. They're in bloom. So now I'm going, okay, now I've got there's the moon gardens. Like, I've always wanted a moon garden, which we can do in the desert because we have datura.
Right.
It's just these beautiful trumpet-like flowers, But that part of the gardens, and that's such a connection, I think, also very feminine bond, mother and child. And of course, men are like that too. But there's this connection over that, is that observation part that I think is, I love that part of the book, because I'm so into that, is that observations and looking at things in a different way. And that was such a good example. Where was your inspiration for a blue garden? I want a blue flower garden.
Oh, I want a blue garden now. I've written about it so much now in the book, and giving Vinny, the child, the love to have a blue garden. I think she says it in one part in the beginning of the book, that she when she grows up, she wants a blue garden. And it came to me that I needed to give this child, who's a precocious child, something that she could look forward to as she refers to as when she's grown up. So the blue garden, I love flowers myself, but I've been thinking, well, when I have my book launch party, which is coming up in a few weeks, I'm only having blue flowers. I have to have blue flowers arrangements around. and so that I can keep with the theme. But it's such a good question when you're asking me, where does an idea like this come from? And it's just from looking around. It's just from, I mean, ideas are all over the place. And you mentioned before about observation. And when I decided, I think that Maddie's daughter should have a blue garden, then I had to research. I had to look up, okay, what kind of flowers do I include that would be in this blue garden?
Cornflowers. Yeah,
yes.
Plumbagos.
That's right.
Plumbagos. We have plumbagos out here now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bluebells. I mean, there's
Lily
a lot of the Valley.
There's a lot.
Yes.
At first, when you think of blue flowers, my first thing is, there seems to me there's a whole bunch more pink ones and yellow ones
and purple.
Than blue.
Yeah. Yes.
But there
are. It's amazing. This is, and that's what I'm saying, that it is amazing how you have, here's these emotional themes, and then you've got like gardens, and then you've got art, you've got second chances on friendships and love, and then you've got this other like crazy side that's like, here comes the criminal side, the criminal element. And that it went into this way, like you start reading it, you have no idea it's going to go like that. I mean, it's crazy. And it's like, so there's the whole part of, you've got also the DEA agent.
Yes.
That I know that you worked with too, right?
Yes.
You actually researched and sat down
with him
and found out what it was like.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that was just such an amazing experience for me, because I sat down, as you said, with this undercover DEA agent. He had just retired, and he actually was a young man. And I remember saying to him, "So what brought you into this business? Why are you doing this?" Because he said to me that every day he was putting his life at risk as an undercover DEA agent, every day. And I said, "So why are you doing this?" And I remember distinctly, he said, "The rush. I do it for the rush." Isn't that incredible?
Wow.
Yes.
That is still not the answer that you would expect.
I know. For the rush.
Wow.
He said it. And so just giving me that word, though, I thought, how do I put this, how do I take a word like this, and how do I make it work into the story, even though I never used that word. But it's that adrenaline. And in a way, isn't it really the adrenaline that, and her immense love for her child, but she just keeps herself moving year after year over the course of 5 years to never give up, and always believing that her child was out there. But along the way, Maddie transforms herself. And I think the reader probably does see that from the beginning she has harder edges, but as she moves through the 5 years, she becomes more compassionate. And
what about? Oh, go ahead.
No, and she even touches on forgiveness.
That's a big theme in there. That's a big one. There's one big forgiveness thing in there, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
Yes. So are you talking about Kay?
Yes. I was like, are you kidding me? But that's another strong, that's
about
believing
friendship.
That's about friendship, real strong friendship through thick and thin,
Yes.
And it's that same strength that she has for going out and not giving up on her daughter,
Yes.
But what about, I haven't had the opportunity to read the book. I'm next, now that Lisa's...
She's sitting here to make sure I don't spill the beans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to ask about the mother of Maddie. I would expect, if this were something that happened to me, that there would be an incredible feeling of guilt.
Yes.
That because as a parent, you always feel like you're supposed to be there all the time somehow for your child, and whether something happens, whether it's your fault or not, I would think there would be a fair amount of guilt.
There is, and that's a good point to bring up, Nancy, because she does, obviously, Maddie, as the mother, she does wonder, could she have done something differently, and could she have kept her child safe, even though she was really going to help someone else and never expected what took place to ever happen, because it was within a matter of maybe just a few quick minutes. But also, there's a phrase that I use in the book, that guilt grows. And so throughout the book, as Maddie begins to reconnect to art, because we're brought back to art again, she continues to suffer this sense of guilt because she's reconnecting to this passion. And it is, even though she is working her way through grief, it is giving her this certain sense of satisfaction. And when she becomes recognized at the end of this 5-year journey, and she's invited to speak on an international panel in Germany about art, and there is a question from the audience that did she have to lose her child in order to find herself? And that question really does haunt her, and it goes back to the guilt.
Exactly. This book, A Matter of Chance, everyone, you must go get it. And I think it is going to be a book that should be in everyone's book club, because this is a discussion, whether it's with tea or wine. It needs to have a discussion of especially I see women reading this, definitely. But I don't see why men wouldn't, to me. I think it really is a good, there's so many themes to discuss, and I'd love to see this as a major book club, conversation. The other part of this is the conversation that should happen is about how girls and boys are going missing across our country in a very, very quick, easy way. And we've done a number of shows on it, and it's happening in neighborhoods. There are so many different types of criminals out there that are taking kids, even right out of school, in all kinds of neighborhoods. You don't need to live in the hood to be abducted. You can be in the most la-di-da place in the planet, and your child, will go missing. It's really, even when I was growing up in Kenya, and that was a huge thing. Nancy had to really watch over me because of the slave trade. And I was a little blonde girl with blue eyes. And there were certain,
there's an element
different elements of from different countries where I was kind of a rarity in the middle of Kenya. I went to Snow White school, and I was the Snow White, and everybody else, it was all kinds of different tribes, and but there was a element of everyone as a village, mothers and fathers and families, really watching over their kids in a different way, because they knew you could lose your kid instantly, boy or girl.
I'm sure. Yes.
And we're having that problem in this country, and people don't seem to really realize it. So I think that's a really important thing about your book.
Thank you. And I actually did talk to several times with a detective of a small town, so that I could talk to him about what happens when a child goes missing and what's the actual protocol for it, and the Amber Alert that we have in our country, and how that works. And so you're right, it is a problem.
Yeah, I think too, that our culture, I'm sure lots of people do know their neighbors and their neighbors' children, and they kind of keep an eye out. But we seem to separate ourselves with walls and fences, and we don't always know our neighbors or their kids. And if something happens, we're kind of like, well, should we say something? Like, if you know that a child walks to and from school and they're always on that pathway at a certain time, and then they're not, do you make that phone call to the neighbor and say, is little Johnny okay, or he's homesick today, I didn't see him go to school? We keep ourselves from doing that. That privacy thing. Whereas in Kenya, we all kind of knew when somebody was late, or and you'd get a call from the school that they're letting the kids out early so that you would know what's going on, and your neighbors kind of all kept an eye out. We just don't seem to have that in this country.
Well, the interesting thing then that Maddie Stewart goes through, the protagonist, again comes back to what you're speaking about as far as looking after someone else's child. And these are when she's just looking out the window and she happens to stumble across something that doesn't seem right to her. And as you're saying, Nancy, she has to ask herself, does she get involved or not get involved?
Yep.
And it's a tough decision that she makes until finally she realizes that, well, what she's seeing, these children, they are the children of someone else's mother. So she does have this empathy and this compassion that maybe she didn't have because of the situation had been so completely different in the beginning of the book.
Writing this must have been a trip. I mean, you're talking about how, Maddie's there and the different characters, and there's a theme of walking too, and I want to talk about that. But do you walk around mumbling to yourself or talking to your characters? When you're working on stuff, we do more articles and things like that, and they're always stewing in my brain, and I'm in another planet half the time.
No, you know what? I love the direction of this conversation because it's fascinating to me, because really what I do is I am a big walker. I definitely am a big walker. And I'm always thinking when I'm walking, I'm not walking with a walking friend or a partner or anything like that. Or with the radio or anything like that. I'm walking in silence. But I stare out the window. When I'm home, I'm staring out the window and I'm looking into this lovely view of woods in my backyard. And
awesome.
And I really see nothing other than maybe some deer coming in and back and forth in my yard, or some squirrels. And I stare out the window, and then the characters, my goodness, they just are talking back and forth to each other. And I have to listen to them. I'm not mumbling out loud to myself.
I just had to bring that in. The deer and the squirrel looking for the blue garden, the blue flower garden. That's what they want,
Of course.
I miss having deer. We used to have deer come in. We used to live up in the mountains in San Diego, and they would come in and they would eat the roses and smile, literally smile when they got to flowers, It's so amazing.
Yes.
The walking theme is a big deal for us. Actually, I got to do a shameless plug here. Everybody, hashtag 1 hour walk. Type out the word one, or just go to onehourwalk.com. We have got a Facebook group to encourage people to go out. They photograph and they post their findings, their walks. And it doesn't matter
I love that.
if you, we try to get people at least once a week to walk. Number one, it's really good for your health.
Yes.
To know your neighborhood, or when you're traveling, to go out and walk the town. That's how you're going to learn about a place. And of course, we're big avid park people, and we want people to know that there are walks that you can take in national parks that you do not need to be an athlete to do, that there are accessible trails. So that's our big thing. But I wanted to ask you, because Maddie's a big walker in there, and I love that. I was like, she's writing about walking. I'm running out to Nancy. She's writing about it. I love this.
Funny.
But it should be reading material for our entire Facebook group. But I wanted to ask, if you could take a walk with any of your characters, I know you walk with them all the time in your head, but an actual walk with a character, which character would it be so you could have a conversation, and where would that walk be?
I love this. I would actually take a walk with Tuba Schwimmer. And Tuba is a secondary character in A Matter of Chance. But she is someone who, as the reader reads this book, she's going to know that Tuba has a story. And I'll just tell you briefly, just discovering her name. When I was in Germany, I was in a cafe. My husband and I were sitting there. And this lovely young waitress is waiting on us, and she has a name plate on her uniform and on her blouse, and her name is Tuba. And I thought, this has to be a character in my book. not the young woman herself, but the name. So Tuba is someone who just completely developed my imagination, and I would like to travel with Tuba. I would like to go to Germany and stay with Tuba. And in the second book, as I said, I bring Tuba in, and she has a voice. And again, interestingly, both Lisa and Nancy, it's a mother-daughter relationship book.
Cool.
And it's Tuba, it's written in her voice, and it's written in the voice of her daughter, Gita. And they go back and forth. But it is in New York City, which New York City is a big character, actually, in A Matter of Chance as well. And I would walk wherever Tuba told me to go, because she is a strong cookie. And I would definitely, and I know I would learn from Tuba. She is a patron of the arts. She is someone who was silenced for many, many years. She had been a concert pianist, and then she married very young, an older, wealthy man. And her life changed, and she became very, very suppressed. And only when she became older did she rediscover that she could help artists and she could help musicians. And so I would definitely walk with Tuba. I would sit and listen to Tuba speak. She has a wonderful place in New Jersey at this beautiful estate, and as well as she is also someone who is not afraid to take chances.
I love that. And that's something, an element of walking too, especially if you don't know the place. There's that element of like, okay, something new to see. And even if you walk the same place over and over, there's always something new to see. How much is walking for you part of being, to have observations and for creativity?
Yes, walking is so much for me. As you said, I can walk around the same place and discover something new all the time. And I love to walk on the boardwalk by the ocean. I live about an hour from the ocean. And when I go down there, and in better weather, in the Northeast, we've had so much snow. It's been incredible. But I love to walk. And I am seeing something all the time. When I was writing this book, I was walking around New York City because Maddie was walking around New York City. And so I had to be able to describe that and experience that for the reader. So I would walk around the city. I would take the train into the city, and I would sit at a cafe. I would watch who was there, who would walk in, and many times I would be writing just with a pen in hand on a pad, so that I could just experience that and look around. So I definitely find that walking is absolutely necessary to my mental and physical health.
I love that you're writing too on actual paper, because I think there's something that we're missing nowadays of not writing. Obviously, all I can say is don't look at my handwriting. I should be a doctor, but you don't want me as your doctor. But everybody would be prescribed, go take a walk. But the thing is, I think that when you're in a creative process and you write something down versus, type it, that it becomes part of you a little bit more. So if you're writing about a character, or I don't know, it just gives you a stronger sense of place when you write it.
It's like a declaration when you write.
Yeah.
As opposed to typing. Typing is kind of like somebody else did it, but when you write something yourself, it's a commitment.
And it also slows down the mental process in a way that is a good thing. I can type much faster than I can write, and I do it both. I work on the computer, of course, as well, but often will write with pen in hand and then put it into the computer. But it does slow down, and it slows down the whole process in a good way, so that there's more time that's taken to move onto the page when I'm using a pen. In all the workshops that I lead, writing workshops, there are no computers that are used in the writing workshops. Everyone writes by hand. And initially, for some people, it's really quite a worry. Excuse me, it's quite a worry. if they can actually use a pen on paper, if they've been used to working on the computer. But something different happens when they just slow down and use a pen rather than sitting and moving at the computer.
It's interesting because I know that you also speak on writing as a life tool, and I think it's really interesting because that parallels with Maddie and her art.
Yes, it does. 9 years ago, I started a program at the Carol G. Simon Cancer Center at a major metropolitan hospital here near where I live. And I work with cancer patients and caregivers and introduce them to writing as a way of healing. And it's really my honor and my complete honor to work with these men and women who are going through such a difficult time in their lives. And they find their voices on the page. They find that they're able to say things that maybe they were not able to say to their loved ones or even to their doctor, but they can say it on the page in a safe environment. So I do definitely believe that writing can be a life tool.
I agree. I agree.
It's attention to detail.
Yeah.
You know, you have to really be able to observe in order to write.
Yes.
You know the lady that wrote The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron?
Yes.
She was on our show, I was going to say about, I don't know, 6 months ago, I can't remember how short or long ago. She wrote a book. It's a bunch of blessings, basically, like a little booklet of blessings and more like meditations, very spiritual meditations. And it really slows you down to think about things. And we were, I wish we were both on the show together because she was talking about the power of writing, and we were talking about walking as well. And we were talking about in the mornings we walk as the sun rises. I mean, that's our thing. And especially in the desert because it gets hot. And but she was talking about writing in the morning and having this thing where you wake up in the morning, you can walk before or after. We had a conversation on that, but she was talking about this power of writing in the morning and not doing it on a computer. I don't think she's ever used a computer actually, and handwriting it, and this power of this as a life tool of writing in the morning. Do you do that?
Yeah. I do write in the morning. I use my time in the day differently. I mean, I write in the morning, but I can also write obviously in the afternoon. I mean, I can sit. I have a standing desk because sitting was just getting too hard. I mean, it's really a problem for writers if they're just sitting all the time. So I work at a standing desk.
Wow.
And so I move back and forth from standing, and then I can lower it. So it's a marvelous thing. And so, but I also enjoy reading. Obviously, I mean, I have to read. I'm an avid reader, and so I'm reading everything. So sometimes when I'm writing, if I'm at a point where I'm not sure where I'm going, I stop and I will just reach behind me and I'll take a book. And usually it's a book of poetry. And I will just look at that and see how that inspires me so I can just step away from myself and get out of my own head and get into someone else's and read their work. But I do understand what Julia Cameron talks about as far as writing immediately so that it's almost a stream of consciousness that's coming out that's coming onto the page. And there's no inner critic that is hushing. I can't say that, or I shouldn't say that, because that's what we want to do away with. And the less we have the strength of the critic's voice in our head, the better a writer will be.
That's true. Self-editing before you've let the thought actually get there and come to life.
Exactly.
It's like, it's like, hey, it's like, let it flow.
Exactly.
And I think you understand that, especially as a poet and a dancer. And I love that poetry, I think, is so important in the world. And it's so hard. Sometimes I would say it's like it's a dying art, but it's like blues and jazz. It'll never die, but we got to keep pushing it to the forefront.
You're right.
That it is, You know, it's like even storytelling. You don't hear about, hey, we're going to go listen to a storyteller. It's a very kind of rare thing at times, you know, when you look at,
Yeah.
you know, across the country. Some areas are really good about the arts. But the spoken word, I think, is very important. And that's leads me
Yes.
to asking about women reading aloud. I
Yes.
thought, when I first heard that, I was like, what, women need to start reading and they have to do
Yeah.
it? What? Tell us
Yeah.
about this.
Well, 15 years ago, I had this idea about women writers that they needed a supportive community. They needed a place where they could bring their work, where they could read aloud and receive critique in response to what was working. And so, 15 years ago, I had invited 12 women writers. They came and sat around my dining room table. And now I can tell you it's an international organization. And I've worked with writers from Australia, Canada, Germany, Portugal, Greece, London, and of course throughout the USA. And what I find is that no matter what genre the writer is working on, and I'm talking about women writers here, no matter what level they are on in their creative journey, that Women Reading Aloud welcomes them all. And there is this equality and because of the support in the group. It's not about what you do outside for a living. It's not about how many children you have or you do not have. It's simply about the writing on the page. And so when I give a workshop, I use the Amherst Writers and Artists method that was started by Pat Schneider, who is just a marvelous poet, marvelous woman from Massachusetts. And she started this method over 40 years ago, actually. And it's so similar to the whole Women Reading Aloud premise, which is write, read aloud, and then listen to what's working. And it really is about discovering your authentic voice. Because the authentic voice is something that we all have, but getting access to it is another story.
It's an integrity part of it. You know, it's the, being true to yourself and
recognizing it even.
Yeah, that's how you build your signature, you know. I would say like the signature sound of a musician. You create an identity.
You're right, you find your style. You find your voice, and your voice is determined by the diction or the language that you choose, and everyone has their own language. Everyone has their own vocabulary that they go to and what they discover. And I always say writing tells us what we didn't know we knew.
It's true. It really,
I like that.
Really, I like that too. And I love the reading aloud part, you know, as what we do, you know, publishing magazines, it's you proof. And you have to read it aloud, even if it's in your head or, you know, that's how, to me, that's how you have to read everything. And I do it in a British accent so that I slow down.
Okay. That's funny.
I know, but I love that part of it. And just because it's bringing things to life, characters to life, places to life. And if you're saying it and it doesn't resonate, then you've got to, like, that's your editing part. But it also is about creating strength and self-confidence.
You know,
inner
so much
confidence.
so. Yes,
creative
much so.
Creative confidence. We do need creative confidence. It's my new thing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it? Creative confidence is the way it sounds. Yes, it's a beautiful phrase.
I like that. I'm going to put that up on my wall. I like this. I have a map where there's all these weird things written on there. And if anybody looked at it and didn't know they'd be like, there's something wrong with this woman. She's got weird things written on a map. But speaking of maps, you're going to Greece this year.
Yes, I'm returning for the 8th year in a row to lead another writers' retreat for women. And this time it's in September. And we go to an amazing island. It's a magical place called Alonissus. And it is a perfect place to go to disconnect. And it's so incredibly beautiful. People say to me, well, is it so beautiful that you're distracted and you can't write? And I say, no. What happens is the entire atmosphere and the beauty and the quiet of the island. It's a non-touristy island and a little fishing island. the people have been welcoming us, as I said, for 8 years.
Wow.
And the host family owns a pension, a small boutique hotel. And I feel as if by now that they are part of my extended family. I love them. They're so hospitable and warm, and everybody knows we're there to write. And there is, of course, downtime. I always talk about how to balance community with solitude. So when we have the workshops, I mean, they're really writing quite a bit over the 10 days, but then there is time that's built in so that they can have solitude.
I like this a lot. I like this a lot. And Greece, Greece is a creative country. It really is. I mean, look at all the creative people that have come out of there. I mean, it's birthed a lot of creativity. I like it. I know it's an awesome way to go. Now, everyone, again, the website is Women Reading Aloud, and also go to julie-maloney.net. And of course, go get the book A Matter of Chance by Julie Maloney, Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Nobles, all those great places, out today through She Writes Press. You belong there. That goes with you, Julie. It has been such a pleasure. This conversation, I love this conversation. I want to have it again.
Me too. Invite me anytime. It's been just delightful to speak to both you and Nancy. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you for joining us. And we want to give a big thank you to the National Parks Arts Foundation. We work with them a lot. They come on our Big Red radio shows all the time, and they have this incredible program where artists, musicians, writers, poets, dancers, filmmakers, anybody in the arts can submit to become an artist in residence in a national park unit or a park anywhere on the country. They have them from the Hawaii volcanoes to the dry tortugas in Florida, Gettysburg National Military Park, forts in New Mexico, you name it. There's always a new park and always a new opportunity. The best thing to do is to go to nationalparksartsfoundation.org, sign up for their newsletter, because these opportunities come in fast and they go real fast too. It's all about the grants. So again, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. And Julie, we've got a song for you. Actually, it's for Maddie. This is the song. It's called Lulu's Lullaby, and it's written and performed by Allison August, and it's on her latest album called Holy Water. It's a song she wrote for her daughter, and it just reminds me of Maddie and Vinny. So this is Lulu's Lullaby, and everyone, you can go to AllisonAugust.com to learn more about the artist, and that's Allison with 2 L's. Thank you all for joining us here on Big Blend Radio. We air Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Fridays and Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can go to bigblendradio.com to learn more and to see the schedule of shows and where to listen to the different podcasts. Thanks so much, Julie.
Dandelion, darling, beneath the summer sky, the whispering wind carries you in. I try to catch you as you blow by. You flit from flower to flower, just like a busy bumblebee, flying faster by the hour. Where'd you get all that energy? My golden child, with your smile so bright, your heart is wild and free, yeah. My butterfly, when you find the time, please won't you hurry home to me? Yeah. your baby hair is everywhere, yeah. I smell the sunshine on your skin, but there's a silver lining every time you drift away. On your sea of dreams, you sail back to me just about the break of day. My golden child, with your smile so bright, your heart is wild and free, yeah. My butterfly, when you find the time, please